We are live.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Founder Hacks, our podcast where we share something we've seen, something we've read, and something we've learned that's been a source of inspiration or education for ourselves or the founders that we work with across a wide range of different businesses. As ever, let me start by saying a enormously warm and fuzzy welcome for a cold season to Mr. Alex Moore.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Alex. And an equally sunshiny and beaming welcome to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Thank you, Ben. Hello, Alex.
Lovely. I hope to inject some sunshine into our lives in such a cold and damp time for many of us, certainly on this side of the Atlantic. But without further ado, I think we should kick off. And I believe Mr. Anthony Enright has had his eyes open wide and has seen something to inspire us all. So, Mr. Enright, please, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. I get to go first. I always go first. But so this is one that I've seen watching the television. As you both know, I don't watch that much television anymore. But I guess given the situation we're in, I've started to watch a little bit more. And as a result of that, I want to watch things that are quality, that I really enjoy. And this is on one of the streaming services, and it's about a university in America, and it's called Last Chance U, and it's about an American football team. Again, apologies, Ben, as a sporting reference, but I love my sporting documentaries. And this is about a university, a junior college in America, and it gives American football players a second chance. So they would have been playing at a higher level of college football, and they'd have either been arrested or had a misdemeanor or done something they shouldn't have done. So this college in Mississippi gives them their last chance to make it as a professional footballer. Fascinating documentary. If you're interested in people and how to motivate people, watch it. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. But what's really interesting is that when you look at the results of this university, this junior college has more successful players than any other college in America. And what I mean by that is that it provides more players to the NFL than any other college in America. So it works. So we've got the data to say it works. And the streaming service have been following this team around, and the head coach I quite like him, but he comes across in the way in which he manages his team. He swears a lot and he's very aggressive and very direct. And when the first series of this program was released, he got an awful lot of criticism for being too competitive, too aggressive, and just not a very nice person. And it really affected him. And then one day he went into a supermarket, and it was difficult for him. He really couldn't go anywhere without anybody making a comment. And somebody in their 70s, a couple came up to him, and the man came up to him, shook his hand and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I think what you're doing with those players at your college is nothing short of remarkable." And he went, "Wow, I haven't heard a positive comment about what I'm doing for a very long time." And the gentleman's wife came up and said, "Well, my experience tells us we all want to see the success. We all want to eat the sausage, but nobody wants to see how the sausage is made. Nobody wants to see the sausage meat." And it was something that really stuck with me and stayed with me, in that in today's world, as leaders, as we run our business, we're under such pressure to be PC and to be kind and to be empathetic. But sometimes it takes more than that. Sometimes we do have to push people. Sometimes we do have to get angry. Sometimes we do have to do things we're not overly proud of. But is it what it takes in order to get there? So I guess from what I've seen, I just wanted to open the debate is, can you run a business by being nice the whole time? Or do you just have to accept that it's okay to be aggressive sometimes? It's okay to be direct sometimes. Obviously, everything has a level. So when I say aggressive, to a certain point, of course. But so what do we think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I like this a lot, actually. And I always think we should try and disagree more on our podcast sometimes, but I can't disagree with any of this. I just thought it was really good. Yeah, to me, I feel like everyone's got their own style. And to me, it's more important that you are true to your own style. So I found, if people come across and they appear to have adopted a style that doesn't seem to fit their personality. They come across as being not very genuine, and then I have a trouble interacting with them. But if this shout, I haven't seen this show, but this shouty guy, if that's his style and that's true to who he is, I could probably put up with working with someone like that, and it might get some good results out of me. So I think more about, to me, if it's genuine and your heart's in the right place, it doesn't matter how you deliver it, really. And it might be a shouty style or whatever. And I just think that's more specific, and that's more of a kind of learn from me about someone's general personality than the tool of choosing when to get angry. And we've spoken about this before on previous podcasts. For me, choosing when to get angry as being a founder is very interesting, because that you can. I've had good results with that in the past. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that, Alex. And Ben?
Yeah. At one level, of course, I like what Alex has injected there as well around that it is about that authenticity of style. I guess for me, it's like all these people are really quick to make a judgment of this guy. Personally, I'd ask the people on the end of him. Do you know what I mean? I'd ask the players what they think of him, and ask them for, was this helpful? Did you need that short, sharp shock that he's given you? And from what you've said in terms of how the guy reacted when he started to get the criticism, I suspect he's doing this perfectly intentionally, because the people that he's facing off to need that short, sharp shock. Interesting, the sausage metaphor really struck me. I like it. It's quite funny. But I guess the thing that also came up for me, and I guess maybe this is a bit of a challenge to it, is one of the positive changes we've seen in the world, perhaps in the past 50 years, is now how that sausage is made does matter. It does matter. We do care how the sausage is made. And these days, actually, even in the sausage market, which is one I actually know, because I did do briefly, a company I work with a sausage manufacturer.
You always amaze me,
of course,
Ben Thomas.
The massive change in their industry is people do want to know how the sausage is made. So I think there is something in there also about sustainability, that I think the days where any cost was acceptable, it didn't matter if you polluted the river because people wanted the paint to paint their houses. It didn't matter if you trashed the environment because people wanted power to heat their homes. Actually, I'm sorry, but we're past that now. We've grown up a bit, and now we do care what's gone into the sausage. So I think that's the one thing I would perhaps offer as a little bit of challenge back. But I do think the metaphor is very true. Is I think a lot of people will want the success, as you say, but lose a lot of interest when you actually describe what that process looks like.
I think that's really going to sit with me, Ben. I think that point about people do want to see, and it's important now, and it's not just the outcome that's important. I'm going to really ponder that, because what's really interesting is going through the second series, and I'm almost at the end of it, is that he has, to Alex's point, he has tried to change his style because of the criticism. And what's clear as we get now, of course, it's edited and produced in a particular way, but what's really clear is that that's unsustainable. He can't be anybody other than himself. And it does achieve the outcome. And Ben, to your point on the players, certainly the way that it's edited is they don't like it. But I wonder what they'll feel about it. Now, I don't know in the second series whether they're about to go on and win the national championship or not. That's either tonight or tomorrow night. But I wonder what they'll feel about it in years to come when they reflect upon it.
Yes. And that's the question. You have to look at these things from a distance.
Yeah.
At one level, you could see them looking back and going, actually, that's exactly what I needed at that time in my life. And that may be the outcome. For others, it may be that some people have been through that sort of situation. It does cause some damage, and that damage doesn't show up until much later. So it's hard to make a call. But as I say, I think the first piece is who are we listening to here to make these judgments and comments? Really, the people we should be listening to are the people who experienced it, rather than observers from the outside.
Some excellent points there. I could talk about this kind of subject all day, but we don't have the time. So thank you, gentlemen. Ben, it's over to you now for our read.
Cool, thanks, Anthony. So this was a wonderful article. It was shared by a friend, and I will share a link to the full article, which is actually about AI and the future of the world. It's fabulous. But there was just one piece that I thought was really powerful and really struck a chord with me. And you're going to have to work with me here, guys, because I need to paint a picture for you. Okay. So I want you to imagine an exponential growth curve. So a graph that's going along and then shooting up into the sky. I want you to picture yourself stood on that graph, about halfway down. So just before the graph starts to spike, you're just stood there. And I just want you to imagine what it would feel like to stand there. And yeah, I've done this with a few people, and most people say, oh, it feels quite sort of intimidating, or it feels quite scary because look at what's about to happen. Then I just shift your thinking and remember that we can't see into the future. We can only see into the past. So then just delete that big spike from the graph. How does it feel like standing there? You're just standing on this very gentle curve. You've got no idea what's going to happen next. And for me, that was a really powerful metaphor for a lot of how it feels when you're growing a business. You never know where you're standing in truth. You never know what the next bit's going to be. And for all you know, it could be that massive exponential spike. So why would you not try and target that? Because that could be possible. Because you don't know what that future is going to be like. So I just thought that was a nice little thought experiment, a nice little metaphor. As I say, the rest of the article is about the state of the world right now and quite how possible that sort of exponential transformational change is, given the world that we're living in. But what do you reckon, Mr. Moore? I think you read it, didn't you?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it because, the AI, the power of AI, and the exponential, the speed at which change is about to happen. And I did enjoy that graph as well, which is right early on the piece. And I think, that's really as being like a founder. You just don't know. You could be standing on there. You just plummet down into the abyss.
Yeah, you could be, right.
Or you're up. But that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. And you just don't. But at least I feel like I'm in control of it a little bit. And that's why, for me, being a founder is so much better than having a job. Because if it does plow down, it's my fault. And if it falls down into the abyss, it's my fault. And I had that feeling of control over the destiny of my life. And I think that seeing this massive, this massive up direction that the graph takes, it's just so exciting. To me, it's such an energizing experience to be involved in a startup that is growing and at exponential pace, and the energy and that how the well-being that it has to me as a person, just energizes me, makes me feel happy, makes me jump out of bed on a Monday morning. That feeling of growth and potential. It's just so inspiring. So I loved this article, and I ended up forwarding it to loads and loads of people. Just standing on the graph. I love it. I do love it. So, Anthony, do you agree? Disagree?
It's a long article, right? There's a lot of information in there, so you can take a number of different things, I think, out of it. And the one for me that really hit home, and I'm sure we've discussed this on a podcast previously, is that as founders, and I'm accused, I do some work with some American companies and some American coaches, and they always say, "Oh, you Brits, you guys, you don't always think big enough." Mm. And so that's the first place I went to is do we think big enough when we're standing at that point with what could be the next curve up, and do we think big enough? Mm. And the other sort of point I was left contemplating is what happens now if we don't think big enough? Because if we look at the pace of growth between, I think it's quoted in 1750 and 1985 potentially, and this pace of growth, I think it justifies that we've grown the same amount from 1750 to 1985 as we have from 1985 to 2021. Now you might need to re-quote me on those. So the growth on the next 10 years is going to be huge. So if you don't think big enough, you're going to you'll be beaten by somebody else.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I looked at it and went, so not only is it nice to think big, the point is you've got to think big. Yeah. Because others around us are thinking bigger, and if we're not thinking big, then we are going to go the other way. We are going to hit the floor and go to the bottom. We're not going to spike to the top.
We have a natural bias for thinking linear.
Yes.
When of course what we actually live in is a world that the rate of acceleration is increasing. It's not just growing, it's growing faster, and the rate at which it's growing is getting faster. So it's a sort of double whammy, isn't it? And I think you're absolutely right, and that we have a tendency to try and predict the future by looking backwards. And of course, actually, in this day and age, that doesn't work, because that isn't a guide to how fast we need to be moving now. So, yeah, a very interesting article, and I shall share the link. I think we're finishing up today with a learn from Mr. Moore.
Yeah, thank you. It's not always you, Ben. It's sometimes
not always me that does the learn. Alex learns stuff too.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, I learned. I mean, mine is it's kind of a read, because I kind of nicked it from. But I learned something from something I read, and it was from. I managed to finish Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed over the Christmas holidays. My third book that I've read of his. I just love him. Turning into a bit of a groupie. I have to get a T-shirt. But at the end of the book, he talks about recombinant innovation, which is nicked from a book called The Second Machine Age, that highlights the way new applications are invented from a combination of existing technologies. And he uses the example of Waze, the satellite navigation system. I don't know if you guys use that when you're driving around. I do. I love it. It's the preferred tool of most Uber drivers I see. But it was a very innovative product by combining components and systems that already existed. And they use the smartphone, they use GPS, digital maps, cellular system, social networking concept, and the internet to provide this service. So they didn't go out and invent all of these things. The genius was stitching all these things that existed together. And this is what he talks about in his book about Rebel Ideas, is all about the different silos of knowledge, and stitching them together is probably a skill that is, we talked about this exponential growth. It's perhaps one of the most important skills you can have as an entrepreneur, is the ability to stitch these things together, rather than being a master in one of these fields where, in theory, AI can do a lot of them better than most human beings already. And if not, they will be able to do so soon. And I thought, wow, I need to talk about that on Founder Hacks, because I found it quite mind-blowing. And I thought, it's another little thing to add to recombinant innovation, another little soundbite to keep in the back of my head and throw out there and make it sound like I sometimes know what I'm talking about, which doesn't happen very often. Anyway, Ben, you look like you're so keen to talk about this. You can go first.
Yeah, of course I am. It's something close to my heart. I think that sort of innovation and the power that we all have, that we may not always realise, to leverage what we've got in a brilliant new way to create that exponential growth we were talking about. And I'm immediately reminded, of course, GPS. That's a combination of satellite technology, a little bit of the theory of relativity, which you have to use to adjust for time dilation as these signals bounce around the world. Radio, we all of these things are things that are stitching together and are built by standing on the shoulders of the giants that came before. So I think it's a wonderful concept, and I guess I'm super curious to kind of apply it into a business context, that actually, every business has resources. We have people, we have systems, we have processes, we may have some bits of technology that we brought into our business. And I think looking at your business with fresh eyes, laying all of that out and actually saying, so I've got these resources, what is the best business I can make from these resources? If you're a restaurant, I've got sites, I've got people, I've got talent, I've got menus, I've got customers. How can I recombine those in new and clever ways? And we've seen some amazing examples, right, during the pandemic, where you've seen, I'm thinking of perhaps a company that I work with quite a bit, Honest Burger. We've got chefs, we've got kitchens, we've got sites. We can do home delivered takeaway kits where people cook the food themselves. And actually, my sister and her family did it, and they had a great time, cooking what was an Honest Burger, and they were sort of thrilled that they'd managed to do that. But again, what a great example. We've got these resources, the environment around us has changed. How can we recombine them to create something that helps our company move forwards. So I think it's brilliant that these big examples can be a great kicking off point and an inspiration for us to do it for ourselves, right? Because everybody can do it. So yeah, a fantastic concept. I think it leads to a brilliant exercise that maybe some of our listeners could try for their businesses. How would you stitch it back together and make it better? Mr. Enright, anything to add?
Well, the word entrepreneur and founder I have a particular did have a particular negative association with the word entrepreneur as I was growing up. And I came from a very working class background, and EastEnders was on in our house, and it was always about Ian Beale being the entrepreneur, and that just didn't really add up for me. And I went from that extreme to then the other extreme of, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to come up with something completely original, completely new that nobody's ever thought of before, and that seemed like too much of a stretch as well. So what I absolutely love about this is just it being a bit more pragmatic and practical to say, no, it's about making what we've got better, and it's about using what we've got and the people around us and our skills and improving, and that's how we get progress. It doesn't have to be, if you can come up with an original idea that nobody's ever thought of before, of course, phenomenal. But it doesn't just have to be that. It can be about bringing these various areas and sewing things together, what people have done, and moving 2 or 3 various applications together, or products, or whatever it may be. And I suppose for me, it brings up that other area that we've been mentioning. I'm sure we've mentioned it before, is, over the last few years, it's all been about what do you specialize in? What do you specialize in? What's your specialist area? And whilst that absolutely has a place, is it now that the jack of all trades is now coming back to being more relevant? Actually, it's okay to be a jack of all trades. It's okay to understand a number of different areas at a particular level and not to have that in-depth knowledge. Because I think in order for this to work, you need a certain amount of people who are a jack of all trades, who can bring those other various things together. Of course, we still need the specialists. We still need the people who really dig very deep. But I love Matthew Syed as well, and it just gives me food for thought. So I will continue to think about this as the days and weeks go on.
Thank you, Anthony. And on that note, gentlemen, I believe we are at time. So how can we summarize what's been a fantastic conversation, and quite a diverse one today? I think maybe there's a golden thread. First of all, is it the output that matters, or the process? Do we care about how the sausage is made, or do we just want to eat the sausage? Well, maybe we do. And maybe as we lead our businesses, the most important thing is to do so authentically and true to ourselves, even if that means sometimes we can be a little abrasive. If that gets us where we need to be, maybe that's the right way to go. Do we think big enough? We're standing on time curves. We can only see backwards, not forwards. And as the world is changing, that view into the past is no guide to what might be possible in the future. So can we think big enough and take our businesses genuinely to the next level? And as we do that, sometimes can we recombine what we've got in clever and thoughtful ways? Maybe the future is about the jack of all trades, who can stitch together what he's got to create something new and really achieve far greater heights than ever before. So what a fantastic conversation. I hope there's something in there for our listeners that inspired or prompt some new thinking for your business. And if it does, please do let us know. Drop us a line on hello@founderhacks.co.uk. Share your stories with us, and maybe they can inspire the next founder to do the same. Let me finish by saying, as ever, an enormous thank you to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Thanks, guys.
And an equally gigantic thank you to Mr. Alex Moore.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks for listening, people.
Thank you. This has been Founder Hacks. I've been Ben Thomas. Thank you very much indeed for listening.